What if I told you there was one number that could help you peek into the minds of the world's greatest investors? Well, today, we're going to talk about that number. It's called Return on Invested Capital, or ROIC, and it's the metric they use to separate the good companies from the truly exceptional ones.
It's a huge question, right? How do you really boil down all the complex strategy, all the brilliant execution of a fantastic company into just one single number? Now look, no metric is perfect, but one comes closer than pretty much any other to capturing that little bit of business genius.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with why ROIC is the ultimate scorecard. Then we'll decode the formula. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds. After that, we'll get into the real drama, how it shows whether a company is creating or destroying value. And finally, we'll talk about how you can use it in the real world, just like a pro.
Okay, so first up, why all the hype? Why is ROIC seen as the ultimate scorecard for a business? Well, it's because it measures something way deeper than just profit. It measures quality.
You know, in simple terms, ROIC tells you how good a company is at turning a pile of money into an even bigger pile of money. Think about a brilliant chef. You wouldn't just measure their success by the profit on one fancy dish, right? No! You'd want to know how much profit they generate from their entire kitchen, the ovens, the staff, the whole setup. That's what ROIC does. It measures the profitability of the entire kitchen.
And this is where ROIC really shines, especially when you compare it to a more common metric like return on equity, or ROE. See, a company can juice its ROE just by taking on a ton of debt. It's a financial trick that can make it look more profitable than it actually is. But ROIC, it cuts right through that noise. It ignores the financing games and asks a much, much better question. How good is the underlying business itself?
Okay, so how do we actually calculate this thing? The formula might look a little intimidating at first, but honestly, it just boils down to two key ingredients.
At its core, the logic is incredibly simple. You just take the profit the business generates from its day-to-day operations, and you divide it by the total amount of money that's been put into the business to get that profit. It's a really powerful ratio of output to input.
So our first ingredient is something called NOPAT, and this concept is absolutely crucial. Think of it as the apples-to-apples profit number. It calculates the operating profit as if the company had zero debt. And what this does is it lets us compare the core business of, say, a tech giant that has very little debt with a car company that has a lot of debt, all on a level playing field.
And the second ingredient is invested capital. This is basically the total war chest that management has to work with, money from both shareholders and lenders. The key thing here is that we only count the capital that's actually working. Any extra cash that's just sitting on the sidelines in a bank account, we exclude it because it's not being used to drive the core business.
Okay, now we get to the heart of it all. This is where ROIC stops being just a number on a page and becomes the star of a drama that plays out inside every single company, the battle to create real economic value.
To really understand if a company is winning this battle, we have to introduce ROIC's sparring partner, the weighted average cost of capital, or WACC. It's a mouthful, I know, but here's the simple way to think about it. If ROIC is what the business earns on its capital, WACC is what that capital costs. It's the price tag. It's the minimum return the company has to generate just to keep its investors happy. It's the hurdle they have to clear.
And this relationship between what a business earns and what its capital costs, it isn't just some academic exercise. It is, and I'm quoting here, the single most important determinant in the long-term sustainability and quality of a business model. That's how important this is.
And the logic is actually pretty simple, but so powerful. If a company's ROIC is higher than its WACC, it's creating value. It's earning more than its capital costs. This is the sign of a fantastic business, probably one with a strong competitive advantage, what investors call an economic moat. But if that ROIC is less than the WACC, well, that company is literally destroying value with every single dollar it invests. But here's the thing. Calculating a really accurate ROIC isn't as simple as just grabbing numbers from a financial statement. Accounting rules can sometimes hide what's really going on. So, to get a truly meaningful answer, we need to make a few key adjustments, just like the pros do.
Yeah, I know that sounds like a bold statement, but it's absolutely true. The numbers you see in a company's annual report, they're just the starting point. A really skilled analyst knows that to find the true ROIC, you have to dig a little deeper and adjust those numbers to reflect economic reality.
So here are a few of the big ones. For example, accounting treats a retailer's store rent, what's called an operating lease, differently from debt. But economically, they're pretty much the same thing, so we add them back to invested capital.
Or think about R&D. Accounting calls it an expense, but isn't it really an investment in the future? Of course it is. So a sharp analyst will capitalize it, treating it like an asset to get a much truer picture of a company's real profitability.
All right, we've got the theory, we've got the formula, and we've even got the pro-level adjustments. Now, let's put it all together. How do we actually use ROIC in the real world to make smarter decisions?
First things first, and this is absolutely critical. Context is everything. A good ROIC is always relative. I mean, look at this. The average ROIC for a household products company is almost 38%. For an entertainment company, it's just over 11. Now, neither of those is better or worse, they just have totally different business models. You always have to compare a company to its direct competitors.
And here's where we get to the next level. ROIC is fantastic, but it tells you how well a company has used its capital in the past. It's a look in the rearview mirror. What we really want to know is, are its future investments going to create value? For that, analysts look at something called return on incremental invested capital, or ROIC. This measures the return on the new money being put to work. A company with a high ROIC but a falling ROIC, that's a huge red flag.
And this really brings us to the ultimate question we're trying to answer. By looking at the historical ROIC and then pairing it with a forward-looking view of ROIC, we can finally start to see the whole picture. Are we looking at a brilliant company with a bright future? Or is it maybe a fading star that's just living on past glories? This is the kind of deep insight that ROIC can give you, and it's the framework that helps you find the answer.